It is my pleasure to introduce Allison Getz, the Program Manager at the Standards Coordinating Body. Allison coordinates community outreach, education, and communication with membership for the Standards Coordinating Body. Prior to SCB, Allison worked for the American Nurses Association, where she planned, developed, and implemented the quality management initiatives for the association and supported the organization in maintaining the ISO 9001 standard. In addition, Allison worked for Battelle as a research specialist, where she participated in the implementation and maintenance of the lab's quality management system and prepared laboratories for certification to the ISO 17007 and 17025 standard. As a reminder, as you listen to the speakers, please feel free to use the question and the chat function to the right of your screen. We'll aggregate these and actually be able to ask questions then of the presenters during the question and answer portion. Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Kendra. Let's start today by defining the word standard. A standard provides requirements, specifications, guidelines, or characteristics that can be used consistently to ensure something is fit for its intended purpose. In essence, a standard is an agreed way of doing something. It could be about making a product, managing a process, delivering a service, or supplying materials. Also think about a standard as being the distilled wisdom of people with expertise in their subject matter and who know the needs of the field they represent. Finally, standards are knowledge. They're powerful tools that can help drive innovation and increase productivity. They can make organizations more successful and people's everyday lives easier, safer, and healthier. Standards all have the same basic purpose of setting out agreed upon principles or criteria so that their users can make reliable assumptions about a particular product, service, or practice. We'll review several different types of these standards, including vertical, horizontal, test methods, material specifications, national and international standards now. First, let's talk about vertical standards. A vertical standard is one that applies to a specific product or product group and prescribes specific procedures to evaluate these aspects. An example of a vertical standard is ASTM F2315, the standard guide for immobilization or encapsulation of living cells or tissues in alginate cells. Contrary to a vertical standard, a horizontal standard applies across a wide range of products and product types. This allows for greater flexibility in use since general principles and guidelines are laid out, but the details are left up to the user. In other words, a horizontal standard provides a framework. It describes what requirements are needed, but not how they need to be met. An example of a horizontal standard is ISO 11135, sterilization of healthcare products. Test methods are another type of standard, and they define the procedures needed to produce a test result. These test results may be used to assess compliance with a standard specification. An example of a test method includes ASTM F20614, the standard guide for characterization and testing of alginates as starting materials intended for use in biomedical and tissue-engineered medical products applications. Another type of standards are material specifications. Material specifications include an explicit set of requirements to be satisfied by a material, product, system, or service, and typically include requirements for physical, mechanical, or chemical properties and safety, quality, or performance criteria. ASTM F239204, standard test method for burst strength of surgical sealants, is an example of a material specification. National standards are those produced by U.S. standard developing organizations, or SDOs. A national standard will be designated by the letters ANS, which stands for American National Standard, and will be accredited through ANSI, or the American National Standards Institute. International standards, on the other hand, are developed by a harmonized international standards developing organization. Examples of international SDOs include the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, the International Electrotechnical Commission, or IEC, ASTM International, IEEE, and Underwriters Laboratory. The types of standards we just talked about are examples of documentary standards. Documentary standards are written documents containing technical specifications or other precise criteria that may contain rules, guidelines, or definitions of characteristics. Reference standards, on the other hand, are physical things or materials that are homogeneous and stable in reference to specified properties and have been established to be fit for intended use in a measurement process. As we mentioned, standards have the same basic purpose of setting out agreed upon requirements or criteria. In addition to the 6 types of standards we just discussed, there are several other standard products, which include standard practices, guides, and practice guidelines. It takes a lot of people working together to develop a standard. As we mentioned, standards are the distilled wisdom of people with expertise in their subject matter and who know the needs of the field they represent. The standard development process first begins when industry or stakeholders identify a particular need for a standard. These experts come together and form technical committees or working groups and begin to develop the scope and content of the standard. Next, the standard is reviewed and comments from the experts are taken into account. The stakeholders then vote on the standard using a consensus-based approach. The final result is a published standard. From first proposal to final publication, the standard development process can take up to 3 years. Following publication, a standard is reviewed on a periodic basis to ensure its relevancy and accuracy. Regenerative medicine therapies present unique challenges related to product testing, scientific protocols, product quality and specifications, performance characteristics, and compliance criteria. Thus, advancing the development and use of standards has the potential to transform product development by inspiring innovation and focusing expertise where it's needed most, contribute to regulatory predictability so that investment and research is catalyzed and safe therapies are brought into market in a timely manner, and facilitate the overall development of promising therapies that can cure or treat many conditions and diseases that are not currently easily treatable through conventional means. In December 2016, the 21st Century Cures Act was signed into law, and it directs the FDA, in consultation with NIST and stakeholders, to facilitate an effort to coordinate and prioritize the development of standards for regenerative medicine therapies. To help support this work, the FDA awarded a 1-year contract to Nexight Group to engage with experts to recommend processes and outline a roadmap for developing standards in regenerative medicine and advanced therapies. The standards coordinating body has partnered with Nexight to provide subject matter technical support for this effort. Between now and September 2018, Nexight Group and the SCB will work together to engage the community to gain a clear picture of the current regenerative medicine standards landscape and recommend an efficient standards development process that incorporates stakeholder input. This work will create a foundation that allows industry, academic institutions, regulatory authorities, government agencies, and other stakeholders to reduce barriers to regenerative medicine research and product development and accelerate the market readiness of these life-changing medical treatments. In a moment, you'll hear about 2 case studies of situations in which regenerative medicine product developers faced challenges to development that were not unique to their specific product, and how standards were used and are developed to address those challenges.
Thank you, Allison. Now we've set some time aside for questions for Allison and her colleagues as the standards coordinating body, Zhuan Zhang and Richard McFarland, members of the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors for SCB. So to Allison and her colleagues at SCB, what are the timelines overall for this project?
So the Nexight Group and SCB will be releasing a landscape report by the end of this month that describes the current standards in the regenerative medicine field as well as standards that are needed. There will also be a series of educational webinars, the first of which is today. A second webinar will be delivered at the end of the first quarter and the third at the end of the second quarter in 2018. And then finally, at the end of September, you can expect several reports that discuss the processes and criteria to identify and prioritize standards development, the feasibility around standards development, and then a roadmap that defines how to operationalize all of this work.
Okay, thank you for that. And then one question that emerged earlier, is it better for a company to go it alone on a standard or to work with industry groups? So to reemphasize the last bullet on Tony's summary slide that he just mentioned, effective standards development is really a collaborative process, and it's based on consensus. So it is beneficial to work together with other groups to determine the need for and the content of standard. Okay, so again, something that benefits and can be defined as a benefit to all stakeholders, so engage with others. And then the last question is, do global pharmacopoeias have a role in setting standards in the regenerative medicine space?
Yes, they do have a role. Pharmacopoeias have rules within their regulatory framework, and then this information is valuable outside of the framework to help support standards development.
Okay. Thank you, Allison and SCB, for answering those well as we came to the webinar.